All right. Well, thank you all for joining us today for this discussion of our young alumni and all of our experiences in graduating into a pandemic, and also just graduating, because I think we forget that even though I think the pandemic takes precedence, there are still a lot of challenges and experiences that everyone has after graduating that we still had in addition to the challenges of the pandemic. So with that being said, we'd like this session to just give people some insight onto some of the different things sociology majors are doing right now. You know, it's one thing to meet someone who's like, I graduated from sociology 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And that can be really cool to hear about. But I think it's really beneficial to hear from people who are more recently graduated. And certainly when we're talking about the pandemic, hearing from people who are in it right now and feeling the impacts of everything that comes with that. So we hope that this can be helpful and insightful for current students. And we're going to be sharing our contact information so that if students want to get in touch with anyone about specific experiences they've had, you should be able to do that. I'm sure everyone here would be super willing to give any advice and guidance that they can to current sociology students. And with that being said, I'm just going to give everyone some space to introduce themselves, to maybe talk a little bit about what you studied in undergrad and what you've been doing since graduation. Why don't we start with you, Mitch?
All right, well, thank you for having me. Mitch Wells, I graduated, I believe, did we all graduate in spring 2020? No, okay. Well, I graduated in spring 2020. So immediately following graduation, or excuse me, sorry, my undergrad background is in industrial organizational psychology and sociology. After graduation, I immediately attended graduate school starting in the fall at the Labor of Employee Relations here at University of Illinois. Basically a master's in HR. So I've been studying that. It's a 3-semester program. And I currently have an upcoming internship with a PeopleSpark consulting company. And yeah, that's it. I graduate in December after the 3 semesters, and that's what I'm doing as of right now.
Thank you. All right, Erica, do you want to go?
Yeah, so my name is Erica, and I just majored in sociology, and I graduated in December of 2020, so just a few months ago. And then after graduation, I moved out to Denver, Colorado to work for Amazon as a senior human resources assistant. So within that, it's kind of a step below being an HR generalist. So as the name implies, a lot of general information I'm working on. So for example, I work within investigations, so about any policy violation, but in particular investigations regarding like harassment. Then I dip my toes a little bit in things like payroll, benefits, terminations, business metrics, a bunch of different things like that.
Awesome. Alexis?
Hey, thanks for having me. So I also graduated spring 2020. So right at the starting point of this pandemic. So my last semester during undergrad, I actually did the I'm a double major in political science and sociology. And my last semester, I did a Washington, D.C. program where I finished my last credits and I was interning in Congress. So I did that. And then following that, I ended up getting in contact with someone with the Department of Justice. So right now I am a paralegal within the Department of Justice here in Washington, D.C. So right after, the end of my semester, I ended up moving here in DC. So it was very interesting to do all of this, within the pandemic. And for my specific unit in the Department of Justice, I work for the healthcare fraud unit. So very interesting too, because especially right now, there is a lot of healthcare fraud going on, especially with, a lot of the government packages that were released for like healthcare, different healthcare funding. So yeah, so it's been very interesting just transitioning out here in DC. And honestly, for most since I started, I've been working from home. So it's been interesting as well. Today was probably like my first time going into the office, probably within the past like 3 weeks. So yeah.
All right, last but not least, Anna.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. It's so interesting to hear what everyone's doing because I haven't seen any of your faces since the spring. So I graduated in spring 2020. I majored in sociology. I minored in criminology, law, and society. And I'm currently a first-year graduate student at the University of Chicago School of Social Service Administration, which was actually just recently renamed to the Crown Family School of Social Work, Policy and Practice, or something like that. I'm still getting used to it. Where I am concentrating in clinical social work, specifically school social work. So I'm currently an intern through school. I'm an intern at a behavioral intervention site called Tuesday's Child on the north side of the city. And I actually just finalized an internship for next year. So I will be an intern for a high school called Mushin College Prep. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, I definitely second what Anna said. It's really cool to see everyone kind of going down their separate paths and, seeing all of you back when we were in school and here we are a year later. It's just really awesome to see how far everyone's come and how it really seems everyone is kind of realizing like themselves as people and as, contributing members of society, which is awesome. So with that being said, I think it would be great if we could talk a little bit about how you came to be on this path to begin with. What do you think was, if you think back to your time in sociology, is there a specific event or something that was really formative for you that led you to make a decision that brought you to where you are now? And if someone has something that kind of jumps out at them, I would say, don't wait for me to say you can speak. Everyone should just feel free to unmute and, talk freely. And if you have a comment or something similar like that someone else was saying, please feel free.
I mean, the biggest thing for me that got me into social work specifically. So as I said, I minored in criminology, law, and society, and I loved it. And I was pre-law from the moment I started school freshman year. And so that was my track. I wanted to be in the legal field. I was, Alexis, considering, I was like, do I want to go to law school or do I want to be a paralegal? I wasn't sure. And around junior year, I was questioning if I wanted to go into law and if I wanted to do something a little bit more working closely with people like social work. And I remember it was the combination of the sociology of law and the criminal justice class. I'm forgetting the professors, but Dan Stewart was sociology of law. And just that combination of classes, I was like, I really love this topic, but I like the sociology part of it more. I like learning about the legalities of everything, but the social aspect was what made me most excited. And I was like, okay, so I should maybe go into social work. And so it was second semester junior year where I just completely, it was actually the exact day that I was going to register for the LSAT. And I said, nope, gonna completely change my mind, rework everything that I thought I was gonna do. And it worked out just great, or just fine. So that's kind of how I got here. So shout out to those two classes.
Piggybacking off of that, I think for me, I kind of always felt like I wanted to do law school. And I honestly was kind of at a certain point, I think my sophomore year, I was like, you know what, I'm not going to do law school anymore. And I actually took a class within political science, which was law and representation. And then I think I was also taking some type of criminology course at the time. And I was like, this is it for me. I want to do law school. So I'm actually right now, I just finished applying to law school. So waiting to hear back. But yeah, so and then honestly, like after I graduated, I had this opportunity. I started probably 2 weeks before I actually graduated. And yeah, it kind of just like fell into my lap. Like it was really great. But yeah, I think for me, I also wasn't sure, like, do I want to do, I never thought I wanted to, I actually was even thinking of getting a master's in sociology because I love sociology. That was like my number one passion. And yeah, I kind of just ended up going into the law route.
I wonder, Alexis, if you could talk really quickly I know because we have a lot of students who are interested in law and careers in the legal field. So could you talk a little bit about like, what does it mean to be a paralegal versus a lawyer, or, what kinds of careers are available for students in the legal field besides just, going to law school and being a lawyer?
Right. So a lot of times, so there is a paralegal, which is you are working with attorneys. So for me specifically, I work with federal prosecutors on different cases. There's also legal assistants, which are very similar to paralegals. They also work on cases with attorneys, like one-on-one, working on different cases, looking at subpoenas, a lot of different legal terminology. But yeah, so that's kind of the level. There's there's legal assistants, paralegals, and then it kind of just like your level of there's paralegal certificates as well you can get, and there's different courses you can take. I've actually been, even I was like thinking, I was like, maybe I can wait. I really like what I'm doing right now. Maybe I could wait on law school and get a paralegal certificate. But there's certificates like that you can do just to up your knowledge and work higher with attorneys. But yeah, that's basically it. When I was in undergrad, I actually interned in Champaign with it's called the Immigration Project, where I learned about individuals seeking asylum or visas that had some type of domestic violence case, or yeah, so I worked a whole bunch during my undergrad in immigration, and that was something I was interested as well, like as a sociology student, just that understanding that type of just understanding immigration in the United States and the levels to it. But yeah, so that was off topic, but basically that's that those are the levels of law, and then there's the attorneys, and yeah.
I also think it's really interesting. So Alexis, you said you just finished applying to law school. Anna and Mitch, you guys are both in grad school. Then obviously Erica and I are working, but Alexis, you are working right now without any additional degree. And, I want to talk a little bit maybe to Mitch and Erica, since you guys are both in HR, one of you, though, pursuing graduate school and one of you just going right into work, about sort of how you came to that decision. And, I don't know if you want to start, Erica, have you considered graduate school, or was that ever something on your mind? Did you always just think you wanted to get right into the workforce? Is that something that might still be on the table for you, or what do you think?
Yeah, so I definitely did consider graduate school. Part of the reason why I think I didn't end up applying or considering it even more was just because I did receive a job offer from an internship I had. So I interned with Amazon virtually in the summer of 2020. So most of that was with our HRRC, or the Human Resources Regional Centers. But since I already did, then I didn't have to apply for any jobs. I just got a full-time job offer straight out of the internship, which kind of made that decision for me. Then once I started, I was originally thinking, okay, maybe I'll work for a year or so and then try to pursue a master's part-time. That being said, now that I'm actually working 40 hours a week, I don't think I really want to pursue a master's and be working as well, just because I think my work-life balance, I think that would be a little bit much for me with doing both at the same time. And I think with having this position, in particular at a company like Amazon that is growing, I should still have room to move and grow within the company without needing grad school. So since I got the position, my idea was kind of like, might as well just jump in, get the experience. And then if I do decide later on, maybe I'll decide it is more doable for me to do along with still working full time, or maybe I could eventually even decide back to school if I feel like I'm being kind of like capped out at without any more education, but I wouldn't imagine that happening for quite a while anyway. And similar to how Alexis was talking about certificates, HR does have certificates as well. So that could be something I may start to pursue. Since I don't have an undergrad degree in HR, I'm not eligible to start taking any of those tests quite yet. But that would be something that would probably be my next route as opposed to getting a master's, just due to the time commitment and money aspect of those.
So for me, I think the reason I went into looking at graduate school, around my junior year, I was doing some soul searching and just trying to figure out like a direction for my life to go. I didn't really know what I was looking to go into. There was, sociology is so broad where you can go in so many different directions. So I was trying to do some like internal thinking about my personal skill sets, my backgrounds, and the things that I've done on campus, my volunteer work, and just how these different aspects like look to companies and what my strengths are and just areas I can improve. And I came across the Labor and Employee Relations school here. Just a shameless plug real quick. I mean, LER here is one of like the top 5 programs for the Masters in Human Resources. So I just felt it was a really strong fit for me. And I thought it was the best direction for me to go. This was probably like the summer following my junior year, I was realizing this. So I just went about studying for the SAT, or not the SAT, excuse me, the
GRE.
the GRE that summer. I ended up taking it and scoring fairly decently, and then applied to the school, along with some recommendations from professors that I've taken classes with in sociology. And I've been loving it here. I've definitely learned a lot. They give you a ton of internship opportunities. They give like a bunch of different companies come and talk to us about our potential internships and just a lot of networking events. It's almost like a mini MBA program, I'd say. So I couldn't be happier with the direction that I went. But I'd say that it was just more about trying to find the holes in my education and my background that I could fill. And it seemed like this graduate program would fill most of them effectively. So that's my ultimate decision for coming to the graduate school here.
That's really interesting. And I will also say that we did a grad school information session recently with a couple of professors in sociology that's also on the Soch YouTube channel. And they talked a lot about some of the things you just mentioned, Mitch. Like, if you're considering grad school, what are the questions you need to ask yourself to make sure that it's the right decision for you? Because it's not going to be the right path for everyone, but when you do it right, like you seem to have done, and you find the program and you really identify something that's a perfect match for you, it can be really, really amazing. And one thing that I also heard everyone talk about is internships experiences and experiences that they had while they were still in undergrad. How pivotal do you think those experiences were? How important were your undergrad internship experiences to sort of put you on the path you are now and to help you realize where you needed to go?
Yeah, I can start with that. I think mine were extremely influential for me. Part of which just because I came into college not knowing what I wanted to do. So much of those experiences, and not just internships, also like just general campus jobs, So for example, like I worked as a tour guide. I also worked as a FICARE or first year campus acquaintance rape education facilitator. So things like that, while they weren't internships, doing undergraduate research gave me many of those same benefits that internships would. But for me, a lot of it was just figuring out what I wanted to do. So as I said, I started college as a statistics major, and fairly quickly, just based on taking that coursework, realized it wasn't quite what I wanted. But then jumping into sociology research is actually what solidified that I did want to change to a sociology major, just because a lot of those same areas I liked about statistics, such as like kind of like the research methods aspect of it, we had in sociology as well. But then I considered going, for example, into higher ed administration when I was working as a tour guide. And then I interned with campus visits. So like generally just kind of interning with the overall process of people visiting campus, such as getting a tour. And that was part of what made me consider that career field, and then maybe also realize ultimately that wasn't what I wanted to do. And then same with doing research, again, both in sociology and human development and family studies, was when we realized like, as much as I like research when someone else tells me what to do, I don't necessarily think I would like it when I'm the one who has to like fully be in charge of it. But I think, right, without having many of those experiences, I probably would have never been led down the path to HR. And then once I officially did an HR internship, I was like, okay, this is something I do in fact want to do. So for me, it wasn't just like, obviously I did get a job from my internship, so that is a huge support. But I think even more so for that, it just led me to find the career path that I wanted.
I think for me too, like, I think having the internships I did have was super important. Just because I did when I interviewed for my job, I did have a bunch of experience in the legal field. So and that was something that I did need to have in order to start my job, and that's something that they really looked at. I intern when I was a sophomore junior year, I interned at the Champaign courthouse, where I helped individuals do civil procedures. So I really started to understand, like, throughout college, just the legal processes. And so now when I'm doing certain things, for working with trial attorneys, I had some type of understanding, like, this is what things mean. This is kind of the legal process. This is how court systems work. So that was really important. And I don't think if I wouldn't have had those experiences, I probably wouldn't have had my job, gotten my job.
It sounds like their internships can be helpful in a lot of different ways. And I think you, Erica, and you, Alexis, your experiences kind of showcase that. In Erica's case, you know, you did a lot of different internships and had a lot of different experiences that showed you what you maybe weren't as interested in and helped you finally find where you were supposed to be. And in Alexis's case, you initially found something that you were really interested in, and then continuing to have those experiences allowed them to like build on top of each other and make you a really great candidate for a job at the end of the line. So I think what that shows us is that undergraduate students definitely prioritize internship experiences, even if, you know, and don't go into it thinking, I have to love this. This is the career path for me, right? Because it's just as valuable to go into it and realize that's not actually what you want to do. And that can be a really great thing to learn as well. I don't want to keep everyone for very much longer, but I do want to touch a little bit on the pandemic. And I wonder sort of how that's impacted you all. I know Erica and Alexis, you guys have been working from home. Anna and Mitch, I assume you've been doing virtual online school. How has that been going? How do you think, what kind of advice do you have for current undergraduate students who are going to be graduating this spring or this winter, you know, into a world that has very much been changed by COVID?
Yeah, I guess I can speak on this a bit. I was thinking about in terms of, I was an intern for the sociology department my senior year, and in terms of undergrad internships and things like that, I just went through a bunch of different interviews for next year's internships. I just went through that whole process. And so I spoke a lot about how so one of my projects as a sociology department intern was I was working on the new student registration PowerPoint for those new sociology students. And so when I went into the internship, it was completely intended to be in person. But, as I was developing it, COVID was becoming a thing. And so I had to completely rework it to make it totally online. And that was something that I spoke a lot about in my interviews that I just endured over the past month or so. And those interviewers really like to hear that I had the ability to, work quickly on my feet, because I'm working in a school. And so, they really like to hear that. Like I'm adaptable and things like that and flexible. And so that's something that you can easily take with your undergrad internship into your future. And so I just wanted to briefly mention that. But in terms of my experience with the pandemic and all, I was lucky enough. So school does a quarter system. So fall quarter, I had one class in person, which was really great. We were able to distance, and it was very safe, and we didn't have any issues with it. And so I kind of went into grad school with that mindset of like, things are possible, hopefully, and things can work out. And while winter quarter and spring quarter will be completely online, there's a lot of talk that fall quarter will be back, at least somewhat in person. And so that's definitely it's just been kind of nice to kind of connect with my cohort in that sort of in the virtual setting, but with the hope that I'll see them soon. And I live near school. And so it's been kind of nice to grab coffee with some of my classmates, even though I just see them virtually. So I've sort of been making the best of the situation, and it's been better than I anticipated, honestly, which is very nice.
Yeah, I can speak on this a bit. I mean, the pandemic's obviously been difficult on everybody. So I think the important thing is just remaining flexible with everything going on. And you kind of touched on that a bit. But like everybody's just trying to make do. So I think some tips that I tried to I guess have for the pandemic, what's been working for me, I've been trying to separate. I've always before this separated my work life and my home life. Like I tried not to bring any work home if possible. That obviously isn't as possible nowadays. So I've been trying to I dedicated my my study room or my kitchen to be my study room essentially. I only really cook or do work in there, and then like at the rest of my apartment I can just relax in. It's helped me, I guess, mentally just prepare for the endless Zoom calls, being on Zoom, 4 or 5 hours a day. It can get repetitive, but just trying to remain flexible, I think is the best advice I can give. In terms of just how it's impacted me, everything's online for me, completely virtual as of right now. We do offer some in-person classes, but those are more select, and there's not enough seats for everybody who's looking to have that in-person experience. But fingers crossed, fall semester it seems like U of I's gonna be pushing for in-person classes. So I really hope things are reined in, and enough of the population is vaccinated to have in-person classes and stuff going on.
And I think from me working, I think we'll probably still be virtual, probably until I don't know. I think till September maybe, and maybe even longer, just because of the space that at work. But one tip I have for individuals who are graduating is that now I feel that just the workforce, in a way, it has become a little bit more flexible. So I know a lot of I just spoke at another panel, and there are a lot of opportunities to work from home now. A lot of companies are transitioning to being completely virtual. So there is that flexibility. You can have a job somewhere else. And yeah, have a job in Colorado, but be somewhere completely else. That's now a possibility. For me, I was working, the beginning when I started working, I was working in Chicago and my job's in DC. So there is that now that flexibility, I can go home to Chicago for a couple weeks and it be fine, and not need to come to the office. But yeah, it's been definitely a transition, especially being in DC and having getting to know the area, and being a new resident here and things being closed. So it's been difficult, just that transition. But I mean, there's a lot of flexibility. I think right now is the time I focus most on my mental health. So that, I mean, that's the positive, I guess, of everything.
Yeah, I'm actually someone who's working in person. So I work within Amazon within operations. So I work at a warehouse. So obviously people still need their packages delivered. So we're still up and operating. But I do think, so in that regard, COVID hasn't really impacted me that much. Definitely moving to a new state during COVID and like trying to make friends and like get settled and all that has been a little bit interesting. But I do think one thing about University of Illinois that prepared me very well for just life after graduation was somewhat that it's the norm to not live in dorms all 4 years. So I was already able to kind of establish like, potentially, I don't live with roommates currently, but like many people will after college, like how to just get along with roommates and setting up like cleaning schedules and cooking, especially now I work 4 days a week, but 10.5-hour days. So a lot of times like making sure I am like meal prepping and stuff, because I'm not going to want to cook dinner when I come home. I work like 8:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. I don't want to cook after 6:30 p.m. when I get home at 7. And so things like that. But I do think that was a part that I really actually, in hindsight now, appreciate about University of Illinois, is that I did have those opportunities in like your kind of first college little apartment setting to establish like learning how to cook, learning how to clean, getting down those routines.
Yeah, that's really insightful. And I think it's interesting and potentially hopeful for students who would be watching this to say, even those little things like learning how to live in an apartment independently will be a benefit to you post-grad. So I would encourage everyone to, make sure that you're taking in all of the lessons that you can, no matter where they're coming from. I don't know if any of you have any closing remarks, any, important advice you wish you had gotten from an alumni when you were an undergrad that you'd want to share with people now. Otherwise, we can all just put our contact information in the chat and we can let everyone go.
I think the biggest piece of advice that I think I would have really appreciated as an undergrad was it's okay to change your mind and it's okay to not know. Especially in a pandemic, it's okay to just take things one day at a time. And if one day you think you're really into HR and one day you're really into the legal field, that's okay. You're just trying to figure things out and, be gentle with yourself, especially at this point in time. It's hard to plan your life. You don't have to do it all in one semester.
Be gentle with yourself. And I would say trust the sociology program because it does give you a lot of great skills and the opportunity to explore a lot of different fields. As you can see, even just from the 5 of us here who have gone in such a different array of directions, all coming from the same program, but all really having built these foundational skills within that program, communication skills and writing and being, the ability to be introspective and also understand the perspective of others, all of these things that we've all demonstrated in different ways. I think building that really strong foundation will allow our sociology students to be successful pretty much anywhere they go. So it really is just about finding the path that's right for you. And hopefully this conversation gave you some enlightenment today. That's kind of a big word, kind of a tall order for us, but I just hope it was beneficial for anyone who is watching. So I'll go ahead and I'll just drop my name and contact information in the chat, and everyone else can too if you're comfortable with it. And we would encourage anyone to reach out and ask us about anything, any way that we can be helpful. The sociology program at U of I is just a great place to start to build that connection. And I'm sure everyone would be happy to help in any way they can. Okay. Bye.